Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us here on The Father Show, and I'm your host, Mike Thompson. Today, we got Sandrine Perradin, and I hope I could pronounce that correctly, but she's going to tell us how we can have a good divorce. And I know a lot of people don't think that's possible, but I do, and she does too, and she's going to explain how that happens. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to have a good divorce? And do you even think that's a possibility? Well, I'm here to tell you today it is. And we have a guest today that's going to come on the show, and she's going to tell you how you can do that, because it is possible. It does take two to do it, because you and your former old spouse have to agree and you have to work together to do it. But it can be done. And I'm going to tell you the benefits that your kids have and just the peace that you have in your life is well worth it. So I want you to welcome our guest today, Miss Sandrine Perradin. And did I say that right?
Yes, you sure did. Hello, Mike.
Got it right.
So much for having me.
All right. Well, Sadri, I want you to tell our audience a little bit more about you.
Yes, absolutely. So my background has been mostly in communication and coaching executives until I went through my own divorce about 7 years ago. And I refused to have the typical ugly divorce where parents just they break the family apart. What I wanted was to be happy again. And I knew that an angry ex-husband was not going to give me the happiness I was looking for. And breaking my kids in the process was not going to make me happy. So I put my coach hat on and was like, all right, so if I start from the end, how do I now come back to today and make it happen? So one thing that, well, let me step back. So after I did that, a lot of people started to come toward me and wanted to know how did that work? How did I make it happen? Because it started like everybody else, where a marriage does not work anymore. We fight, and you don't believe that anything is possible, and you think you're gonna go to the lawyers and fight more and lose all the money and hate each other for decades to go. So more and more people wanted to learn, and so I started to write about it, to write blogs, and that blog then ended up into a book, a memoir, in fact, called A Family No Matter What. It is my story on how, thank you for showing the picture.
No problem.
So it's a book that shows pretty much how I went through it and how I made it happen. And so one thing that I would like to address from what you said just earlier in the introduction, when you say it has to be done with two, because you have to be two to want it. That is a misconception, I will say. It starts with one. Most people want an amicable and a beautiful divorce, but they say and they believe that, yes, but only if my ex-husband or my ex-wife or my ex-wife to be would want that, then that would be great. But, she's so angry or he's so upset that it's not possible. And a beautiful divorce starts with one person. You need one person to have the vision of what can be done. And then once you have a very clear vision of the future, a very clear vision of the relationship that needs to be created as co-parent in order to protect the family, but also to bring peace and respect within that relationship, you will need to sell it. The best sell in your life. And once you sell that vision, and when you sell that vision, it is very important to make sure that the person in front of you, so your wife or your husband, understand why it is better for them. Because that's one of the biggest problems that I'm finding again and again, is when people sell something, they say, why it's better for me. And the person in front of you, especially when you said, I want a divorce, you know, they don't care about you anymore at this point. They don't want to know what's best for you. They want to know what's in it for me.
But it would still take, but wouldn't you say it would still take two? Because both of you have to ultimately agree that this is the best way. And that's what I meant when I said it takes two. Because I know one can start it, but if the other person doesn't join in, you're not going to have a good divorce. You're going to have somebody that has a lot of anger and a lot of frustration, and that's going to make you have a lot of anger and frustration. But that's what I meant by that.
Yes, it is very important. I mean, yes, eventually you become two, but you still can do it with one. Because what happens is that you learn to separate your emotions from the goal you're trying to get. So yes, there are times where, you know, I just wanted to scream with him, at him, you know, because it's very difficult. I mean, they said divorce is almost the most stressful moment in someone's life. I mean, there is another thing that is more stressful, they say, but divorce is really at the top.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It triggers you in so many ways. So the recipe for a good divorce, you know, because I have not met yet anyone, any couple waking up at the same time, you know, looking at each other and like, hey, let's have a beautiful divorce today. You know, it does not work. And it's very rare to have a good divorce, an amicable divorce, where both of them are right on the same page from the beginning. I mean, it's very rare. So a lot of people do believe that, oh, you are lucky, or it has nothing to do with luck. It has all to do with knowing how to do it.
Because it's a choice. It's not about luck. It's a choice that you have to make and decide that this is the way we're going to do it.
Absolutely. It starts with a choice. And it's not easy, just like a smoking cigarette. You know, it's very simple. You just don't put the cigarette in your mouth, but it's very difficult to, you know. But it's so it starts with a choice, looking at the future rather than looking at the past. And one of the problems nowadays, and especially the way that we divorce with lawyers and all that, we fight for a past that we want to end, and that makes no sense. And what happens is that when you just get into the past, you get all those emotions that comes back of anger, resentment, bitterness, and revenge, and all those things, where the way that I help create divorce, and other professionals as well, is about focusing on the future that you want to have for yourself and for your kids. And right from there, it starts shifting everything, because once you focus on a happy life, you don't want to fight as much. Now, I want to say something, because a lot of men have told me that they think that, oh, an amicable divorce means that you become a doormat.
No.
You know, so you've got to say yes to everything. It could not be further from the truth, and quite the opposite, in fact. Is because you create new boundaries and you create a new way of communicating. I mean, the things that I see a lot is most marriage who divorce are still married but divorced. They still talk the same way as they were married. They still have the same communication style and pattern and cycles, and it still does not work. And it works even less now because you divorced. So that communication and that relationship has to be transformed. The thing is that a divorce, when you have kids, a divorce is the end of a marriage,
Mm-hmm.
not a family. And
Right.
you are bound to each other until that is the true forever and after. So now you
Yeah.
have a choice because that person is not going to disappear. She is going to be the mother of your kids, or he is going to be the father of your children. And they need their both parents. They need their mom, they need their dad. So it is very important to separate the couple from the family. And to make it
Mm-hmm.
easier, that the way that I look at it is that you have to transform this relationship into a business relationship, the business being the family. So imagine yourself going at work. Sometimes you have colleagues that you're not great friends with. You just that you need to work together and you make it work. Then once work is finished, you're not there, having a beer and shooting the breeze. It just work is done. And
Mm-hmm.
that is the same thing, because when you're a family, um, everybody gets impacted by everything. If I might say, there is this saying that I thought was so true. It's a little bit crude, but it says, "As a family, we're all in a pool. Whoever shits in it drinks it." And it is very true. One time I remember one time someone saying, "Why do you care if your ex-husband is doing all right, or if he's set in his new home and he's doing good with the kids?" And I'm like, I care, because if he's not doing okay, then he cannot be a great father for my children, and then my children are not okay, and when my kids are not okay, I'm not okay.
See,
So
and I hate to cut you off, but that is such an important statement. And, I want a lot of women to hear that, and men for that matter, because we can be some jerks as well. So, I want everybody to hear that. So if you would really repeat that, because that is a key.
yes, it's everything that we do as a family impacts everybody else. So it is in my best interest to make sure that my ex-husband is okay and that he is happy as well.
Right.
Because by being happy, by being okay, is going to be a better dad. And I want him to be the best dad he can be, because my children deserve that. They need that to be happy. And in order to be happy, I know that my children have to be happy. So his happiness is directly impacting my happiness. Now, it is
Absolutely.
not my role, of course, to make sure that he eats right or whatever, but our relationship has to be respectful. It has to be united, because here's the thing, the children, they don't really care if you're in love or not. They don't care that you share a bed. What they need the most is to know that their parents are there for them at all
Mm-hmm.
time. That decisions are made with both parents. I mean, of course, they try to play you. It's like, oh, if mom doesn't say yes, I'm going to ask dad. But
Mm-hmm.
very quickly they understood. They were like, oh, but you're talking about us? It's like, of course we talk about you all the time. Every decision is made, the two of us, for you. And that's what they need. So they don't lose their parents. And
Mm-hmm.
one thing that is so important about that is I hear so many people saying, oh, but we don't fight in front of the kids. As soon as you break the family apart, okay, and again, a divorce is not the end of a family, just of a marriage. So when you break the family apart, meaning that you're no longer willing to make decisions with your ex-husband or with your ex-wife, then you are putting the kids in the middle, even if you're not aware of it. I mean, I hear all parents saying, oh, I would take a bullet for my kid. And I gotta say, it's true. I know they mean that, but yet they're not able to take one for the team to get along with their wife, their ex-wife or ex-husband for 2 hours for the kids. So it's like, let's get real here. Let's
Yeah.
not stop talk
Yeah.
about I would take a bullet for my kids when we're not even trying to get along for our kids. So here's how we destroy our children without realizing that we do. Let's say, for example, that I'm very upset that my ex-husband is remarried. Okay, that just I'm not, by the
I
way,
know.
but I mean, um, so every time that they go there, it makes me sad or it makes me upset, right? The kids, they feel it. They feel everything that you go through. It's only, you know, it'd be foolish to think that you can hide it from them. So what it tells them is that, one is that I'm sad, I cannot be happy without you. So the children, they feel sad, they feel that something is wrong, that they should not leave their mom or their dad. So so they can start resenting their dad because it's like, oh, that must be his fault for making mom upset. So they start resenting their dad and being angry, which is so unfair to the child because they need that relationship. They need the father. You know,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. And let me ask you on that too, because I agree that the child will feel it, the child will know it. So for the fathers out there, you know, being nice and cordial to your former wife or soon to be former wife is imperative to make sure that your kids don't look at you in a negative way. Would you agree?
But yes, I mean, if you want to start to train your brain and to start to train on how your relationship is going to be, I mean, first, you know, it starts with a vision. What type of relationship do you want to have? That's what I do with all my clients is we set some time at the beginning to really understand the relationship. So I make them go through this exercise where it's like, okay, let's pretend that you need to go pick up the children at your ex-wife's place. What do you say to each other? How do you interact with each other? And during birthdays of the kids, and during Christmas and Thanksgiving, and all those moments that are family moments, and that the children might want to have both parents with. So once you have a very clear idea, you know, then you make the effort. And of course, you know, it's not magical, and it's not gonna go great suddenly, but little by little, you know, once you remove certain words, for example, the way you talk about her, you know, one thing that I did when I started my divorce is that I told all my friends and family that I only expect respect toward my children's father. I'm not referring to him as my ex-husband. I'm referring to him as my children's father. And as soon as someone, because you always have a friend who thinks that they want that you want to hear, oh, what a douchebag is, and blah blah blah. You know, you always have those.
Yeah.
Right there, you're like, no, you don't get to say that. He's a great father, and he ought to have the respect. So it does take some time because sometimes you get so much anger, you know, but so you get to every time you get a negative image or voice that comes in your head and wants just to trash her or trash him, you know, just start like, okay, how can I rephrase this? So now how do you talk with each other? Because there are so many emotions, you know, it's very
Now,
important to, yeah, go on.
I'm sorry, but is there a way or method that if a man has a former wife that is being very spiteful,
Yeah.
is there a way that he can say talk to her to get her to see or get her to understand that the spitefulness and all this is really hurting the kids?
Well, for one thing is that women are fairly simple in some ways, and just like men, you know, um, we need recognition, and we need excuses. I mean, apologies. So pretty much, if it could start, not to say you need to understand because it's hurting the kids or anything. All she would hear was like, "Oh, I'm not doing it right. You're going to tell me how to parent. You're going to tell me I'm not a good mom." That's what she's gonna hear. So that's not gonna work. However, right from the beginning, it is important for her to understand that she has been the best woman she could have been, that she is a great mom, that her children, that our children our children love you, and I wish you to find happiness, and I wish you can apologize for all the hurt that has happened, that she did not deserve, that nobody deserved anything, even if she has, we're two to tango, so everybody's got things, but really give a very sincere apology of what happened. And you don't have to go so much into the details, I'm so sorry that it ended up like this, when we got married, that was not what we both looked for, but now here we are, and I know how much you have done for our marriage, and I know how much you have done for our children, and I hope that I can be the best dad I can be to support you and the children, because you will always be my family no matter what.
Okay.
That starts with that.
And that's good.
Telling her that I see you, I respect you, and I want the best for you. And
now, what would you say if the wife, and this is generality, really, the husband leaves and because he has a new girlfriend, but what if it's the reverse? What would you tell men how they can deal with the fact that their wife or former wife or soon to be former wife had an affair, and that's the reason you're divorcing, but you got to put that aside for the best interest of your child?
It's the best interest of the child, but don't forget that it is also in your best interest. Why? It's because when you have an angry ex-wife in your life, it will cost you decades of misery, and nobody wants that. It can cost you a lot of money. And man, when you get someone angry at you and that decides to make your life hell, not fun for you. So, so what do you say? For example, she's the one that had an affair and left, and so you're angry, and how do you get over that? Again, you keep focusing on what you're trying to do. You are going to be hurt. I mean, that would be silly to say, "Oh, just get over it." It's your pain, your resentment, and all that is something that you need to deal with, but not with her. She's not going to be able to give you any answers to make you feel better or anything. So it's to be resolved. It's to be talked with either a therapist, a coach, or whatever, but separately. She's not the one that will help you deal with it. It only can make things a little bit worse. So just focus with her. So I want to give an example. One time I had this client who gets an email from his ex-wife, and their child is with her, and the child is sick, and he wanted this type of medication. "Oh, daddy gives me this medication. It tastes like candy. I love it," and all that. She writes nasty text. So our kid is saying that you keep giving him medication that tastes like candies. You always do those kind of things. This is very dangerous. You're not this, you're not that. How could you do that? Just attack after attack after attack, right?
Yeah.
And what he did, he went back right into it, just like they were married. "Oh, you always blah, 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 blah." And then the whole, fight cycle just goes crazy. All he needed to do was like, "I am so sorry to hear that little man is sick. Thank you so much for taking good care of him. You're a great mom." Bam, done.
But what if you don't agree? What if you don't think that the child needs to be on that medication?
Well, in that case, okay. So let's take an example. In fact, it happened to me this morning. My ex-husband took the kids to get a vaccination shot without telling me. And this is really something that is very hard on me. When it comes to the children and their health, I need to know. So I get quite upset about it. And so I learned not to write when I'm upset, because a lot of time you just say things that you regret later. But I wrote a text saying, I thought we agreed that we were not going to do that without talking to each other and deciding together what is the best course of action. And then, so, went into like, well, I didn't think that you needed to know because really this shot, it's too before, blah, 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 blah. And so, and I told him that I don't like it, I said, but I'm not saying that what you did is wrong or anything. I'm saying I want us to make that decision together. I understand your logic. I also would like to give you my point of view. And then if we decide together that it is the best way to proceed, then I want to help them to fight it pretty much, to train their body with vitamin C or whatever that is. Mm-hmm. But now let's pretend that, because it does happen sometimes where you cannot go through the parent, right? You can't. No matter what you say, the parent is not going to do the same. So at this point, it is, depending on the age of the kids, it is very important to bring your kids in and teach them as well how to have a voice, because there are things that you are no longer have control over what's going on in the other parent's house. It's out of your hands. True. And once you're divorced, you have no right pretty much to call and tell her or tell him, well, I don't like how you do it. And, this is not right. It's like, you know what? You're not my husband anymore. Or you're not my wife anymore. You don't get to tell me what to do. Mm-hmm. So if it is very, very important to you, and one of the things is that I hear so often is, well, my kid doesn't like it when his dad says this, and they just want to call their husband, their ex-husband, and just give them an earful. And I'm like, what do you think is going to happen when you do that? One is that probably the parent is going to deny that's what happened. Mm-hmm. Two is that there is always two sides of the story, so don't right away accuse of anything. Three, the parent might be quite upset about it, so we'll be upset with the kid saying, I cannot believe you told your mother or you told your father about that, so get an earful of it. The kid feels like, oh my God, I cannot trust my mom or my dad so now I cannot tell anything. So it's a mess for everyone. Instead, you realize that, what's going on in the other house, you can't change it. You don't have the authority to tell him or to tell her what to do. Okay, yeah. You can sometimes you can say, hey, how is that going? Do you need any help or anything like this? But you can't say this is how you need to do it and my way or the highway. True. No. So, but if she still does not do what you like, then it is very important to have a talk with your kids. I mean, again, they've got to be old enough. And by that, I mean, starting 5, 6, 7 years old, it's important for them to learn to have their own voice. So you've got to ask yourself, is that bothering me or is that bothering them, the kids? Mm-hmm. Because if it's just me, then it's my problem to figure it out. It's not a family problem, my own.
Well, that's being an adult.
But if it is a problem with a kid, if the kids come home and they're crying or something really is upsetting them, then you need to give them the tools to be able to handle it on their own. Mm-hmm. Because the other parent will listen to their children much easier than their ex-spouse. So it's not about telling them this is what you need to say, but more like, how does it make you feel when, when your mom does that? What do you think you could say when she does that? So prepare them to have their voice, mm-hmm. which is one of the best gifts that you can give them for their whole life. Because mm-hmm. a lot of time when we are parents, especially moms, I will say, we have these bad habits of managing them so much that we get in the middle. We are the one that goes into the face of the dad saying, don't talk to him like this, don't do this and don't do that, Yeah. Whereas if we can teach our children to do that for themselves in a way that will work, because we know the husband very well. We've been living for 15 years, so we know what you can say, what you cannot say, what are the triggers, So from being a apart, you can say, okay, so if you say that, that's going to make him angry. However, you know, he works like this. So you could say something like this that would work with him. The best time also to do that. When do you think your dad or your mom would hear you better? So you put kind of a strategy with your children, but that teaches them to stand up for themselves without having to scream or anything, but to have their voice heard, to be respected, and to say what they need.
Yeah. And I agree with you. That's definitely something in it. And there's some good advice. But unfortunately, that's our time for this week. But Sandrine, how can our audience get in touch with you?
So the easiest way would go to my website, which is beautifuldivorce.com. So right there, you can find my email, my phone number. I've got a group on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm everywhere. So, but the easiest way, beautifuldivorce.com.
Okay.
So I just very quickly, if I may, I've got two different programs. I've got one program for women, which is a group program where I teach them how to have a good life with divorce. And I have a one-on-one program with men. It's a one-year program where it's just me and that person. And during that time, I take them by the hand during the whole divorce process. Who to hire, how to talk to their wife, how to write it. So, you know, I'm in the middle of all communication, and I translate pretty much saying, okay, so this is what she's really saying. This is what she needs to hear. Okay. This is how you need to write it. This is how to train you for the conversation you need to have, and being there for them when they want to vent, because, you know, everybody wants to vent at some point during the divorce, but you cannot vent to anyone. And
so you help them through the process. So when they decide they want to get divorced, you help them through the process and step by step to get through it as best as they can.
For their situation, because every divorce is a little bit different.
Right, so absolutely.
We find what is the best way. Most of my clients actually never had to hire a lawyer, which, you know, the average divorce nowadays is $30,000, and that's without fighting or not much. And so we don't use a lawyer most of the time, because really, when you think of it, a divorce is mostly two things. It's money and emotions. So we work with a money person, which usually is a CDFA, Certified Divorce Financial Analyst. That what I like about them is that they are trained about money, and they're not about looking at the past, you know, or splitting everything in half. They're about looking at how you're going to be how you're going to be doing from 6 months to a year, 5 years, 10 years from today. So it is about building a future that is sustainable for everyone. And then the emotion. So I help with the emotion and the communication. And why the reason it works is because I teach them on what to say to their wives. So they get on the same page as them, and they realize, okay, yes, it makes sense. Okay. It's better to do it this way than going with a lawyer and hate each other and fight for the money that we want, but that's a lawyer that gets the money. And again, you know, I'm not saying don't hire a lawyer or anything, because there are some cases that you have to. For example, you've got a spouse that starts claiming lies about you, then you got to defend yourself. Yeah. But most divorces don't have to be bad. They just don't know that there is a different way of doing it.
Yeah. Now, what can somebody expect when they read your book?
So when they read my book, it gives them hope, I will say, but also it gives them, they read it and they're like, oh, I get it now. Yeah, this is what I want. So that gives them the view of a potential future that they can have for themselves, but also because, you know, we're talking about divorce and we think, oh, divorce is the process. It takes about a year, really, about a year. But divorce is a transformation. It's just a tool to create a better life. You know, if we have a divorce, that means that something was not working. We're not happy. So now it is an opportunity to change things around and to create just an amazing life for yourself, for your kids, for your family, and not repeating the same mistakes, but creating something just really amazing and worth living. I mean, I find that life can be very hard, you know. I mean, we get a lot of
Yeah.
shit happening sometimes. So let's make sure at least that we are happy, you know, as much as we can, and not having an angry ex-wife or ex-husband in your life. Goodness, you know, nothing worse than that.
Yeah, I agree with you. Well, I have to thank you so much for being on the show. You have definitely brought some great information and some that I know a lot of men needed to hear. And the women that are part of our audience, is good for them to hear it as well. So
Yeah.
thank you for being on our show. And it's definitely been a pleasure. So we'll
You're
be.
very welcome. Oh, if I may say just one more thing for
Mhm.
women is yes, men do want an amicable divorce as well. A lot of
Yes,
women think that their husband don't, but they do, and they want to be great fathers. So allow them to be great fathers, because
absolutely.
a great dad makes just amazing kids. So do everything you can to help create this new relationship between your children and their fathers.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's our show for today, and I want to thank you for joining us. We have had a great time, and I think you, if you watch the show, you definitely get some great information. Now, if you do need resources, please go to the Father Show with MikeThompson.com and click on resources, and then click on the state that you're in, and we have resources there to help you. And that way, that if you are needing somebody like Miss Perradin, you can find her on our website as well. And you know, you got it right here on the show. But you can watch this episode and other episodes, excuse me, on our YouTube channel, The Father Show with Mike Thompson. And while there, don't forget, hit that subscribe button so that you will always be alert when we have a new show coming up, which we do every week. And that way you'll never miss a show. You can also listen to any episode on our Facebook page, on my LinkedIn page, on iHeartRadio, on Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, Twitter, Tumblr, Amazon Music and Audible, and other apps. So thank you for joining us today. I want to say we'll see you next week. And until then, God bless and have a great week and stay safe.